Hey guys, we're here today with another interview on this YouTube channel, and today we have,
Alan Small,
and you are, sir?
the Ontario Libertarian Party leader.
Nice, nice, nice. So, for anybody that doesn't know, what is the Libertarian Party of Ontario? Well, basically, the Libertarian Party of Canada.
No, they're
Oh,
quite different.
okay, quite different. Okay,
don't,
see,
don't confuse the two.
okay, good, good. It's an educational moment for me too. So, what is the Libertarian Party?
Okay, first of all, Libertarian Party, there are many Libertarian parties across the world.
Mm-hmm.
We all probably share many things in common, among them the fact that we prefer to have government less in people's faces. We prefer to have lower taxes. We prefer to have more choice. We prefer to have more non-government services. We prefer to have I would say non-monopolies with
Mm-hmm.
government. So that's probably true about every single libertarian party across the world. And believe me, it's a growing movement. In Canada here, we have probably three active libertarian parties that I can think of right now. There's the Libertarian Party of Canada, and they are a federal party. They're basically they operate under regulations that are produced by something called Elections Canada out of Ottawa,
Mm-hmm.
and it happens that there's probably a lot of cross membership. I'm a member of that party as well, and I've actually run for that party in elections.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not the same exactly as that party because we sort of we're provincial. So we're the Ontario Libertarian Party, and we're regulated by something called Elections Ontario, and we deal with the issues in Ontario, and we run people in elections, and we try to get elected to the Ontario legislature. And I think most people are aware, at least people from Ontario know that the Premier is Kathleen Wynne, and there are three parties right now in the Ontario legislature. There's the Liberals under Wynne, there are the Conservatives under a guy named Patrick Brown, and
Mm-hmm.
there's the NDP under under Horvath. So those three parties, they vie for votes, and we do too. And we're the fifth largest party in the province. The Green Party has no members in the legislature, but they're the fourth largest party, and we're fifth, and we're the largest party in the whole of Ontario that advocate for smaller government.
Okay.
Uh, and by that I mean uh, smaller government, less spending, uh, more more options for people. So for example, the other day there was a big announcement by this was yesterday, I guess, by the Ontario Liberals. They announced that they're allowing the sale of wine in some stores across the province.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that we would say is, well, gee, it's kind of high time we've grown up. It's 2016, and they're allowing the sale of wine in some stores. Well, this is kind of routine in most places around the world. In Ontario, it's just beginning.
So they're behind the ball.
Well, they're so far behind the ball that it's paternalistic. I mean, they're acting as parents of us, and people really should think about that. And,
Mm-hmm.
why is it that they're allowing the sale of wine? And by the way, it was only a year ago that they started thinking about allowing the sale of beer.
Yeah, I remember
So,
that.
so this is pretty routine. I mean, all you have to do is drive across into the United States, into New York, and you can go to any supermarket and see beer and wine on shelves, and it's pretty routine. And people are not walking around drunk on the road
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's something that we would say needs to be not only allowed, but I don't understand how the government has the right to say that stores can't sell liquor and wine in stores, or even and beer.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I keep seeing on the news, and I don't really know how to explain it, and hopefully you can help me. But I keep seeing like little loopholes with the, cross-border trading. Like, and it's not even borders so much as like, I don't mean borders in terms of countries. I mean in terms of the province. I mean people are getting penalized for bringing stuff over from Quebec, and that's
Yeah.
one thing that I kind of opened my eyes to. It's like, well, we're all in the same country. Why is this a big deal?
Yeah, no, I know the story of actually a fellow was bringing stuff. There was a story, and it became a court case where a fellow brought stuff from Quebec into New Brunswick, and he got into trouble. That sort of thing is ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
there should be no interruption of trade within Canada between borders.
Yeah.
And provincial borders. In fact, it's in the Constitution. There's a section of the Constitution that says that all Canadians should be able to move goods, services, whatever, from one province to another without any hindrance. But of course, that's not true, and it's basically unconstitutional. And that's what happened in this particular court case. It was a case where the fellow that was caught, and I'm making quotes around the word caught,
Yeah.
carrying beer across the Quebec-New Brunswick border, he got into trouble, and there's no reason for it. He won his case, but the interesting part is that the people in New Brunswick are still subject to the whims of whatever government there is, and they still don't like people bringing cheaper beer across the Quebec-New Brunswick border. So that's silliness.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Wouldn't you agree that, like, in the little bit of awakening that I've had, like, I kind of found it ironic. I didn't know that it was quote unquote illegal or difficult to bring stuff within Canada. Like I like you, I kind of think, well, if we're within Canada, what's the big deal?
Well, it's not illegal. That's the point.
That's what I mean.
It's not illegal, but the government of every particular province has made it in cahoots with whatever group. It's difficult to do. So,
Yeah.
For example, if you happen to be a teacher who teaches in, say, Alberta, well, your credentials may not be recognized here in Ontario.
Yeah.
And for the same reason, I know a lot of guys who live in Ottawa, and if they want to buy beer, they don't go to the beer store here in Ontario. They just drive across the river to Gatineau, and they pick up some beer and they bring it across, back into Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, that should not be legal. It should not be illegal.
Yeah, exactly.
The people here, I'm sure that the beer store here, they apply pressure to the government, and they sort of discourage that free movement of goods across the border. That's ridiculous.
Well, wasn't that what Canada was, and for that fact, even America, wasn't that what it was basically founded on, was more freedom away from the British colonies and less, whether it be religious persecution and just kind of almost dictatorship, but yet that's what we basically have. A lot of people are choosing to ignore it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Well, the United States the story of the United States revolution being brought on by a tax on tea, and you've all heard about the Boston Tea Party,
Yep.
that sort of, well, that was a tiny, tiny tax which started a revolution.
Yeah.
That's the story anyway. Maybe it's probably more complicated than that, but the simple fact is our taxes aren't tiny anymore. Taxes that are, if you sum up all the taxes, federal, provincial, municipal taxes, typical Ontarian is paying. It's probably well over 40%, and I've read support for the fact that it could be as much as 65% of people's income goes to some form of tax or other who live in the province of Ontario, which is a huge number.
Yeah. Now let me kind of pivot here. I need to ask you, like, one thing, for example, that I've been thinking of is, now my introduction to libertarian was through Gary Johnson. Okay, in America. Now, in America at least, and from what I've seen of the federal libertarians, they believe in marijuana should be legal, and it should be, whatever we put in our bodies is what we put in our bodies, or whatever. What's like, considering what Kathleen Wynne wants to do with marijuana, and she wants to put it in the LCBO. If we had a libertarian government, and let's say, if we won a provincial libertarian government, what would your stance be with the whole marijuana state right now, like the state of marijuana right now in Canada, like whether it be for medical or recreational use? What would you do?
Well, marijuana is a federal issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a provincial issue. It's covered by, it's a prohibited drug that the federal government has on their books.
Yep.
And the provincial the provincial police here and the judiciary here in Ontario, they're obligated to uphold federal laws.
Yep.
So Kathleen Wynne doesn't have a whole lot of say in the matter.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
What we expect to happen is that there'll be some sort of an announcement from the federal government, the federal Liberals. They will say, okay, here's how we plan to do it. I expect that to happen sometime in the spring of 2017.
Yep.
And each province is going to have to decide how they're going to carry out the new regulations. So marijuana will be what? The question is, it's illegal now, although the police have a tendency not to pay too much attention to a lot of people who have small amounts of marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it's going to become legal.
Yeah.
And then, how is it going to be sold? Well, you might have heard this week, Shoppers Drug Mart here in Ontario has applied to sell medical marijuana.
Mm-hmm. I read that.
It's so that's how that may be how it's going to be sold. I don't know. It could happen through the LCBO here in Ontario, which is already a government-run monopoly, which sells liquor, beer, wine, and only in, like as I said just a little bit earlier, they're only starting to loosen up some of the grip they have on these things. But you're absolutely right. Typically, libertarians are in favor of, well, if you want to put something in your body, you're entitled to do whatever you like. And marijuana is not something that we would be against. It's not something that we're pushing. I've never used any marijuana. I don't even smoke, and I've never smoked. And cool. It's certainly not marijuana. But I don't see a problem with people who want to do that. That's fine and up to them. really be involved at all. That's a typical attitude of any libertarian
Mm-hmm.
who would call themselves someone that advocates libertarian ideas, federal, provincial, international, you name it.
Okay. Well, I was just asking that because I am a registered medical user because of my disability. And I also believe in like they should loosen the rules. So that's why I was asking if you were Kathleen Wynne, or like, I mean, if we had a libertarian government in Ontario, what would your stance be? What would you be saying to Prime Minister Trudeau? You know what I mean? And actually, you brought up a good thing with the LCBO. If we had a libertarian government, would you propose selling off the LCBO or just loosening the rules where more stores can sell liquor? I'm assuming that's what you would do.
I would sell off the LCBO entirely.
Okay.
I don't understand why the government's involved in the sale of liquor, beer, wine. I don't get it. This goes back to the idea of religious prohibition, which was something that was very popular, say, 1920s era. The Americans had prohibition. The Canadians briefly had prohibition as well, but what happened is they dropped their prohibition and they basically put it under some sort of government control, and it's been under government control since 1925.
Okay, a little bit of a history lesson.
In Ontario, which is, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, there's nothing more paternalistic than, we're going to let you do this. I mean, the regulations here in Ontario are that somehow they don't trust people. They don't trust people to behave in a proper way. And I think, in fact, it backfires,
I agree.
Because liquor is so hard to come by, because it's so expensive, people tend to go overboard when they do get their hands on it. And I think if it was more of an everyday thing, like it is in Europe, for example, it's not the rules there are much looser in terms of, having wine at dinner and stuff like that. Here, it's really very expensive. I mean, there's no ability to compete. The fact that wine is being sold now at supermarkets shouldn't make people happy, because what's happening is that the price is still controlled by the government. The price of wine in your local Loblaw store is going to be exactly the same price as the LCBO. So there's not going to be a competition between the two stores. It's just a matter of, okay, well, now I don't have to go to another place to buy the wine. I can buy it together with my groceries. Well, big deal.
Yeah.
I'd like to see price competition. And price competition doesn't happen when the government controls the price.
Mm-hmm.
And the LCBO, it's the largest liquor, beer, wine purchaser in the whole of the world.
Really?
And yet, yes.
Wow.
Between the LCBO and the beer store, they just think about it. There's 13.5 million Ontarians, and this is one company, one company that has this huge purchasing power for all the stores in Ontario, and yet when it comes to price, they don't exactly get a break on the price. They actually make the price a little bit higher so that it discourages people from buying the stuff.
Yeah.
If you're selling it and discouraging, I mean, it just, do you see the
Yeah, it's a little bit of a...
that is, here you are, you're selling it, but you're trying to discourage people not to buy it? Come on.
Yeah, plus it's kind of... I will say it's a little bit hypocritical to be, like, selling booze or anything as a government like that, and then turning around and making these, not that I'm saying people should be allowed to drink and drive, but now all of a sudden they battle with themselves because they put all these responsible drinking ads, but yet they're making millions of dollars off of people's drinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Here you have this. It's kind of a conflict of interest. They want to sell liquor, beer, and wine because they get a lot of tax money from it, and yet they try to discourage it because they don't want people to do silly things. And I don't see the connection. Drinking and driving should be against the law. Yes, it should come. The police should come down hard on people who do that, and what that has to do with social responsibility, I don't understand. One, this is the same idea falls into so many other aspects of our society, from guns to the marijuana issue, the liquor, beer, and wine issue. These are things that people like to do on their own time and for their own pleasure, and yet somehow the government inserts itself and makes it difficult for people to enjoy these things. You can't, for example, another issue that libertarians sort of unite on is the idea of guns. Well, there's a lot of people that enjoy target practice and owning guns and cleaning guns and doing whatever you like with them, except going out and killing people. Of course, that should not happen. No. Yet gun control is, somehow guns are evil, and they should be prohibited. But the simple truth is, there's a lot of law-abiding citizens that like to do target practice and that sort of thing, and yet it's frowned upon by a large part of society. I don't think it should be.
You raise a good point.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the commonality that libertarians have probably around the world. They don't like to see the government insert itself into the pleasures of individuals. Yes, there should be laws, and the laws should be stringent, and the laws should be upheld, but to make it to sort of paint everyone with the same brush and say that everybody that uses a gun, smokes marijuana, buys liquor, they're all somehow evil, that's wrong.
Yeah, good point. The one that, like, when you brought up the wine, it flashed me back in my mind to a story about this small winery trying to get into the LCBO, and all the papers they had to sign, and the fee for this and the fee for that. So that'd be another good reason to get rid of the LCBO for one. When it comes to the employment issues that we have in Ontario, I haven't seen the most recent number. Do you know our unemployment rate in Ontario? Are we doing pretty good, or are we doing bad right now?
We have huge unemployment. The fact that anyone is unemployed, to me, is anyone that wants to work should be able to work.
Yeah.
And there should be no way that the government can insert itself between a person that wants a job and a person that wants to hire someone, and yet the government does do that.
Yeah.
So that's another area that we would like to see the government get out of the way, and that means doing many of the things the government does is it makes unemployment higher, makes it harder for people to get a job. And one of those things, for example, and this probably is not popular, but one of those things is the idea that government says the employer must pay a certain wage, a minimum wage, to an employee. So if you happen to be a student who has a part-time job and you're living at home with your parents, and you get a job, the law says the employer must pay that student X amount of dollars. I don't know what it is now. I think it's 11. I don't know what
It went up to 11.40.
All right. So $11.40. But the problem is, of course, an employer will say, well, $11.40, that's a lot of money for me per hour when this person only produces, in my calculations, say only $8 worth of work.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, employers are discouraged from hiring people. And, of course, when you hire people, it's not just the salary that you're paying. You're also paying a whole bunch of other things like unemployment insurance, CPP. You send in taxes on behalf of the employee. So the employers have other burdens on top of that, which makes it difficult for them to hire people, and so you're discouraging people being hired. And so what employers do, and what they have been doing, some of the lower paying jobs are being replaced by automation.
Yeah.
And so, I was in a store the other day, and I think it was a supermarket, and the cashiers are disappearing. You can now go up to a machine, and you can check out yourself, and you bag yourself, and do everything yourself. And of course, the reason for all that is because it's much cheaper for the employer to do that.
Yep.
And I don't think the employers want to do that because it's fairly expensive initially to buy all of this machinery and equipment and automation. But they're doing it to avoid paying the minimum wage plus all of the other taxes and benefits that the employer does not want to have to do, and certainly doesn't do when he's got a machine there.
Yeah.
Machines don't take breaks. Machines don't get sick. They sometimes break down, yes, but you don't have to pay taxes for them, all sorts of things. So, you walk into a typical fast food restaurant these days, and you may end up not speaking to a single person. It may all be contact with a mechanical device, where you insert what you want to eat, and you pay the amount, and you'll get the food.
Well, I mean, people praise technology. I used to love technology, but I'm not a techie kind of guy, and it's starting to scare me now. When you got cab drivers and pizza boys pizza delivery people, at least, being replaced by robots, that can be a little bit scary.
Well, I don't know if it's scary. It's it makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
This whole business of automation is being hurried up because government inserts itself into the employee-employer situation. If government was left, there's no reason in the world why you would. These are all minimum wage jobs, by the way, the pizza delivery and the fast food.
Exactly.
Those jobs are being replaced, and it's being sped up because of government meddling, basically.
Yeah.
And of course, these are entry-level jobs. I mean, anyone that is a student and still lives at home, or they're looking for a job just to make a few bucks, and they want to get an entry-level jobs, and those jobs are being taken away by automation. And it's not the fault of the employer. The employer is just doing it because he's trying to make things more efficient.
Well, one of the things that, like, I'm an artist, I'm an advocate, I'm a filmmaker, and one of the things that almost killed my company last year was the unemployment insurance and just like you said. So when you said that, it's like, oh yeah, I get it. Because I ran out of money faster.
Of course, and this is where You look at the three parties here in Ontario, the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDP, and none of them, not one of them, advocates for removing some of these restrictions. I mean, the Conservatives, some of them may say they do, but when they get into power, they change nothing.
Yeah.
So there's where we, the Libertarians, will step up and say, look, here is an opportunity for you to vote for a government that will be less intrusive, will free things up, make things a little more affordable for everyone, including for employers. If you had a choice between being unemployed or getting a job for $9 an hour instead of $11 an hour, would you not go for the $9 job? Well, personally, I would.
Yep.
But that's against the law.
Yep.
And that's ridiculous.
Well,
why should the government basically force me to take a job for $11, which is not going to be offered to me because no one's going to pay me $11, and so I have to basically stay at home and not be employed when I could be making some money, without the government inserting itself into my business, and that is my business.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the two very important things that I want to talk about, but one is I've seen some videos, right, where libertarians are like, get completely rid of, mind you, these are American based, I think were some of the videos I've seen, but where they were saying get completely rid of welfare and all this. What would you, if we got in as libertarians, when it comes to welfare or ODSP, what would your stance be on to improve or to improve them or to completely get rid? I mean, disability is one of those things we have to obviously keep, but I mean, what would you do to improve it? Because I know myself, as a person with a disability, I tried going back to school because I don't have the best upgrading because I wasn't treated well in school and the school was very dismissive of my goals in life. And then when I went to get a job, they said, well, maybe you should go back to school. So then when I went to go back to school, they said, well, maybe you should go volunteer somewhere for a bit. So then when I went to go volunteer somewhere, they said, well, maybe you should think about going back and trying to get a job. But nobody wants to, and nobody wants to hire a person with a disability. Just the other day, I saw a woman on CTV's morning show, used to be Canada AM, I forget what it's called now, but this girl says, I paint to sublet some of my ODSP through this organization for disabled artists. But I've tried getting a job as a Walmart greeter and nobody will hire me because they don't want to make the accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you do to improve ODSP or welfare or in that sort of sense?
Well, there's another instance, of course. One of the reasons that you don't want to hire somebody who may have a disability is because you're also obligated to pay them the set government rate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that discourages employers. Well, I don't want to have to be responsible for this person because I have to accommodate. I have to jump through all the government hoops just to hire somebody. I won't hire them. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So, but that's not to say that just because someone has a disability in one area, they may be very able to do a particular job.
Mm-hmm.
And if the government did get out of the way, employers would more readily be willing to hire people. It's very obvious that if you have to meet certain stringent obligations before you can hire someone, that only will discourage you from hiring them. And
Mm-hmm.
so you prefer to hire, either not to hire or go the automation route and find a way to avoid hiring. But back to your question about what would we do about all of these welfare issues. Well, we're a political party, and in Ontario and in most of the Western world, political parties are elected by their popularity.
Mm-hmm.
So we have developed a platform, and actually we're in the midst of developing the platform for the 2018 election, which is going to be in June of 2018. And right now we've got 8 ideas, and the one overriding idea, the one idea that sort of encompasses all of the other ideas, is that we're not going to take anything away from people that currently exists. In other words, if you're on ODSP, if you're getting some sort of welfare check from the government, we're not going to remove that. That's not the issue that we're involved with. There are other issues that we are very much concerned about, and I can enumerate those issues if you like.
Sure.
Okay, so hydro rates is the very big issue right now.
That was one thing I was going to bring up, yeah.
Well, it's such a big issue that, in fact, since the current government has came to power in 2003, the cost of electricity has skyrocketed many times over.
Mm-hmm.
So our position is that we've developed an idea that we're going to cut your hydro bill in half. So
Okay.
if you think that hydro is far too expensive, that's something. And by the way, the cost of electricity, which used to be very cheap in Ontario, attracted businesses and manufacturers here in Ontario. And now that it's so expensive, businesses have been driven away. They go to Quebec, they go to Manitoba, they go to the States, because it's much cheaper to set up there, and it's much cheaper in many ways to have a manufacturing business, because you tend to use electricity. Well, so that's one issue.
Mm-hmm.
We have 8 of them like that, but all of them have the one overriding idea that we're not going to take anything away that exists currently. What we're going to do is we're going to give people another option, a non-government option. And you can think of many places, for example, education. The government owns the education system, the public school system. The curriculum is basically controlled by the Ministry of Education here in Ontario.
True.
Parents have very little input. And so, there was this major issue recently where the Wynne government...
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Major issue that they want to introduce a new sex education curriculum. Well, we're not against that particularly, but we don't. But I
remember that.
Yeah, well, I understand that people don't like that, and if you're a parent, you should have the first right to say, okay, I don't want my kids exposed to that. So, if you go to the government school, you're going to get exposed to that. But if you attend a non-government school, you may have some input in saying, okay, I don't want this on the curriculum. And so that's something that we would advocate. The trouble is, of course, everybody pays taxes, and the taxes go to education, but we think that the money that you pay in taxes should be directed to the school of your choice, not necessarily to the government school, but possibly to a non-government school that does not follow that same curriculum. So
okay.
Those are 2 issues. I'll take all day here if I just go
But
all 8 of them.
I can. Why don't we make it easier on you, and why don't we just tell any viewers of this video where they could find the platform once it's updated?
It'll be on our website, which is libertarian.on.ca, and if you when the platform is ready, and it first has to be approved by our membership.
Yep.
We'll present it. And by the way, we're easy to find on Facebook.
Yeah.
Just type in Ontario Libertarian Party, and you'll find that we have a Facebook page that we update at least 2 or 3 times a day with ideas and information that basically outline our policy and our stance on a number of issues in Ontario.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I thought was rather interesting, and it came back to the forefront very recently, and it's being fought in court right now, at least in BC, but this could go Canada-wide, is that health case, that issue about healthcare. And
Center in British Columbia.
Yeah.
I know well, Dr. Brian Day.
Yeah.
He's the guy that an orthopedic surgeon who thinks that waiting lists are way too long.
Which they are.
And I agree with him. And that there should be the ability to have a non-government option in healthcare.
Mm.
And Ontario is one of the worst areas in the world where you basically, if you want to get health care quickly and efficiently and without any hassle, don't come to Ontario, because Ontario will not be quick and not be efficient, and you'll probably have to wait even if you're in pain or agony. In fact, in the most recent statistic, I think it was about 24,000 people. This was 2015, I think, the last time they did this. 24,000 people left the province of Ontario to go to the United States or Europe or Asia or somewhere else to get better, faster health care when they wanted it. So they had to pay their airfare to go to this place. They had to pay hotel rooms. They had to pay for the service, and they did all that. 24,000 people did all that, instead of having it done within the province of Ontario. Now, why would you make a rule which says that you must leave the country in order to get the thing that you want to get? Why couldn't you just say, okay, look, if you want to pay for the whole thing yourself, fine, go ahead and use a doctor, a medical practitioner here in Ontario, and get the service you want. Well, that's against the law.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You have to leave the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ridiculous. So we advocate a non-government option. And the case that you're talking about, Brian Day, and the Canby Center in British Columbia, that's exactly what's happening there. It's a case that's being brought to the BC legal system, and I hope they win, and I hope that, I suspect that they will not win, but I suspect that the issue will be carried on to the British Columbia Supreme Court,
and then the Canadian one,
and the Supreme Court of Canada.
Yeah.
Something like this has already happened in Quebec.
Excuse me.
There's a well-known case in Quebec that goes back about 10 years where a doctor brought a similar case in Quebec and said that it's against the Charter of Rights to keep Quebecers from getting medical care in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And so the case was brought to the Canadian Supreme Court, and based on the Quebec Charter, the doctor won, and the rule has changed. It's much easier, for example, in Quebec, to go to a private clinic and get faster health care that you want to pay for.
Yeah.
In fact, Ontarians do that. You can do that to a degree, but of course there's other issues, because the federal government complicates the issue. They have this thing called the Canada Health Act, which says you've got to have, you've got to operate under these certain rules if you're going to get money from the federal government. So it's still an issue in Quebec, but it's a little bit freer than it is here in Ontario.
Yeah.
I don't understand why our legal system, our government, does not use the systems that exist in much of the rest of the world. And I'm not talking about the United States. I'm talking about Europe.
Yeah.
Where they have universal access to health care, just as we do here in Canada, but they also allow the non-government option. So if you don't want to wait for the government system to provide you with the health care that you need and you happen to have some money, why shouldn't you be allowed to spend it and get the health care without having to travel outside of your country?
Yeah,
well,
I saw that in an interview you did, I guess. I'm guessing 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, our views haven't changed. And the good news is that I think that people are starting to come around to our side of thinking here.
Yeah.
Because it makes so much sense. I mean, I get it that it sounds unfair for people who have money to get faster health care. But the truth is, people who have money also have nicer cars and they have nicer homes and they go on vacations more than I do. And
yep.
So, I mean, don't tell me what's unfair. Why can't they get health care if they want it?
Yeah. And I think in the last interview that I saw with you and this woman on YouTube, or at least the video was on YouTube, you made it clear, and you made it clear again here, that you're not saying get rid of universal health care. You're just saying what's wrong with a secondary option if this option isn't going to work.
Yes, exactly. That goes exactly together with what I've said earlier. We're not going to take anything away from you, but we are going to open it up a bit and say, here is a non-government solution to it. Then there's a non-government solution to healthcare. There's a non-government solution to virtually every problem that exists. Why not allow the non-government solution? Why not allow, even when it comes down to the LCBO, the LCBOs can still operate, but give me a private option. Give me a non-government option where I can go ahead and buy liquor, and I'll probably get it for a better price too. Yeah,
because it used to be about competition and pride and.
Competition is, everyone forgets that our system here, competition tends to drive down the price of things because the manufacturers become more efficient at manufacturing devices. So one area that the government does not seem to be much involved with is, for example, cell phones, smartphones.
Yeah.
Well, they used to be, they're expensive, but the truth is the prices come down, and the abilities of the smartphones has gone up, and not just smartphones, but computers too. More and more people have access to computers because the whole, computers used to be very slow. I mean, I remember going back into the 1980s when computers first started becoming popular. Mm-hmm. They did very little, but today you have these super fast computers for relatively low prices, and all of that is because the government is pretty much not involved in that area. Imagine if they were.
Oh, I know. I used to think if the government kind of has an eye on everything, then it would make competition more fair. But I'm starting to see that it doesn't. You know what I mean?
And I mean, here we are. Not sure where you're located. But we're talking on a device through Skype, where I can pretty much talk to anyone that I want to.
Yeah.
In the world, pretty much for free, right? Long distance is a long distance. I don't know. Is this a long distance phone call?
Probably. Oh,
Okay,
like
well,
if no, I'm saying if it was just on a phone, right? But now it's not a long distance call.
well, but it is. Effectively, it's the same as a phone, right? I mean, I can remember back when a long distance call was something you tried to keep short because the price was outrageous back in
Yeah,
the 70s. Um, my own wife comes from the United States, and
yeah,
when we were dating, and I put quotes around dating, just a phone call to her would be prohibitively expensive.
yeah,
But if there was Skype, we could talk for hours and hours for nothing. As long as you had the equipment and the internet and all of that, yes. And that does have a cost, but the cost is much, much lower
yeah,
than the cost of what a long distance call was back in those days. And that's because the government basically granted a monopoly to one company. That was to Bell. And they
yeah,
said, okay, Bell, you guys are it. And of course, Bell said, well, if we're it, we can charge whatever we want. And they did.
yep,
But now there's so many, because of they've deregulated that. It's basically free. A long distance call, I don't even think about where you're living when I make the call.
yeah,
And even my telephone provider, I have a plan which allows me to pay very little money
yeah,
for long distance. So most people can talk long distance. It's not an issue anymore, and that's because the government got out of the way.
yeah. Well, one thing I would like to see, and again, I'm just learning, so I don't know if this would be considered. Well, I guess I'll look at it this way: if we were to get elected and we were to be the Ontario government as the Libertarian Party, then I would like to see, one thing I would like to see is more regulations for ODSP to actually help people find jobs rather than put these roadblocks in there. And if they can't...
Well, in other words, you want less regulation, not more.
No. But yeah, what I meant was less, less regulations and less... I said that backwards. And less red tape if to open your own business or to try and do workshops for employment. You know what I mean? Because I tried to do that all, and they were like, "Well, we could, but we only do it if we see that it's a viable case." Or I can't remember the exact wording because this was about 10 years ago. And it just got so bad that like I said, now I'm an artist, I'm an advocate, I'm considering politics because, and I opened my own business because I got tired of hearing no, and I forced their hand because for a while I was going there and I'm like, look, I'm an artist, but I would like money to start my own website so I can promote my art. And they were like, no, can't do it. Finally, what I did to put my foot down was I went, got the business license, registered the business, and then I walked in there and I said, oh, by the way, I opened my own business. I want $500 from my employment startup. So it basically made them drop their jaw and go, okay, we'll give you the $500. You know what I mean? You have to make it happen. And that's what I would like to see is more respect from them to help people like myself get jobs or create their own jobs if they have to. Instead of being told, no, we don't see it as a viable case. Even if it's not a complete...
But you're asking for money.
Yeah, exactly.
From whom?
Well, from ODSP, because
We would not favor that.
well, wouldn't you? I know it's like a double-edged sword, but the way I'm looking at it, and maybe you'll make me see it differently. The way I'm looking at it is, if we make them feel like, if we make them see that, okay, this guy's got a real passion or whatever, let's give it a shot, then you're creating your own jobs, because especially with the technology, like we were saying earlier, it's getting to the point that people have to create their own jobs or create their own businesses, right?
So there's nothing wrong with creating your own business, and the government should be as much out of the way in that regard as possible. And,
yeah.
And for them to give money to the creation of that business, I would be against that.
Sorry, I said it, well, in my case it was for the creation of the business, but what I mean, what would be better would be maybe a little bit of maybe a little bit of money for the education side of it. Would you see that as a viable case? Because then, okay, there you get the little bit of a workshop or a little bit of an education. Now we're out of your way. Or would you guys not favor that? Because I'm open to hearing your side of it.
Well, there's other ways of raising money. If you happen to be, if you happen to have some property, you can go and you can go to a bank and say, okay, I need money for X, Y, Z, and if you present a good business plan, the bank will say, do you have anything there that could back up the money that we would give you? And you could say, yes, I have X property.
Yeah.
So you can borrow money. It's not that hard to do, and certainly the interest rates are not very high because the government has inserted itself there too. But you can borrow money, or you can raise money doing those online
the crowdfunding
scams. What are they called?
Crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding, exactly. So there's other ways of raising money. I'm not in favor of government spending more money than it already does. In fact, we're
well, I see that side of it. Don't get me wrong, I do. But I have tried to, again, it creates a double-edged sword, because I've tried to, it creates like a loop, because I've tried to get money from the banks, but because I'm on ODSP, right, they don't see it as, oh, well, you don't have a good enough credit because you're on ODSP and your business is only making, I'm making money, but I'm not like in the thousands, you know what I mean? I'm comfortable, but that's also because I got used to living on $600 a month. So then the other way, like for to say that we can just go to a bank and get a loan, you could, and other people could, but I'm saying for the people on ODSP, that's where it becomes tricky, because even with ODSP, there's too much government reach there, because I'll give you an example. A friend of the family's, right? He's on ODSP. He got a part-time job, and he saved, and he sold some stuff when his family, some members of his family passed away. So he took the money and he thought he could make a better life for himself, and he bought himself a small home, just a small, modest home. Because, like I said, when you're living on ODSP, you get used to living on very little amount of money, right? So then he bought this house, and then the government turned around, ODSP turned around and told him, you need to sell this house because you're not allowed to own a property on ODSP.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying, like, if we could, the bummer that I'm kind of proposing, that you say rightfully so you wouldn't back, the reason that I'm saying that we gotta try doing something like that at least once in a while is because what's wrong with somebody trying to get off ODSP and live a better a more normal, for lack of a better word, normal life, right? Because I'm doing my artwork and my stuff to get off ODSP and just be comfortable. And then in that sense, the government would be saving money if I ever got off ODSP, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying the one shaky thing that I'm kind of proposing is helping people to build the business, maybe put them through business workshops, and then eventually encourage them to the point that they could get off ODSP if they're if they're financially capable.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, if we weren't paying, and I'm talking about the majority of people, if people weren't paying taxes to the extent that they were,
I agree.
If government government is involved in so many areas, doing so many things, many of them that a lot of people are not happy with. If I had a choice on how my government spent my money, I would not be, I'm not happy with the way they spend my money. I think they shouldn't be spending it in that area or this area. And government does too much of that. If there was a lot more,
I agree.
If people were able to keep more of their money, they'd have more money, and they'd probably be a little more generous with the money that they have. And there's no reason why you could not accept a charitable donation from someone or maybe a group if people donated to that charities. And I'd say that that money would be more available if the government wasn't taking so much of it.
I agree.
So I don't know the solution to your particular problem, but I do know that that there are ways of being financed. The crowdfunding thing to me sounds like a great idea for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are willing to donate. It doesn't take much money to it doesn't. It's not no owner's thing for someone to donate $10 or a bunch of people to donate $10 to a particular worthy individual. So if you can make a case, why not? And if the government says you can't own something just because you happen to be on some sort of disability payment scheme, that seems to me to be a bit intrusive.
Oh, it is. Because what's wrong with what my the family friend did? He did what his parents wanted him to do. It was in their will to sell our, we don't need this stuff. You don't need whatever you don't need. Sell it and build yourself a better situation. Do whatever you want. You know what I mean? And that's what he did. He bought a small house, and ODSP turned around and said, "No, you got to get rid of it." And then they also said that
the government is intent on making people dependent on the government. And
I agree.
That is the wrong attitude.
I agree.
Everything government does, it tries to make people more and more dependent on it, and that's something that we're totally against. It's the wrong way of thinking. We want people to be less dependent on government. We want people to be able to use their own abilities and or their disabilities to be independent of government.
So this is one thing we can mutually agree on. Then, if we've agreed on more than that. But if we got into government, then you would potentially strike down the rule saying you can't own this house or you can't own this car, right?
Well, potentially, we'd have to look at it, but realistically, we're not looking to be taking over the government anytime soon, because our biggest issue, and one of the reasons I'm doing this interview, is because we're not very well known. There are probably nine people. 90% of the population has no idea that the Libertarian Party exists, even though we've been around for about 40 years, over 40 years. The party has its own issues trying to raise funds, because political parties get their funding through donations. And if you happen to be a very small party with very few donations, you don't have the same sort of impact as the big three or big four do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very difficult for people that have never heard of us, and certainly who have. So even if they've heard of us, they maybe have an erroneous idea of what we're all about.
Yeah, like the anarchist kind of thing is what I've heard.
Well,
Yeah.
No, that's kind of ridiculous. I'm not an anarchist.
No, I know you're not.
That's a wrong impression.
Exactly.
We're a political party, and political parties, by definition, want to become part of the government. And even though our primary position is to make the government smaller, we're not going to try and create an anarchist situation. Nobody in my party that's in my party is advocating anarchy, and if they are, well, they don't stick around very long.
I think the unfortunate thing is that because of the few libertarians that are so fed up out there in the United States, for instance, like there's been libertarians in the so-called libertarians in the United States that have completely burnt their social insurance cards, burnt everything that shows paper trail, and that's the unfortunate image that some people have. Now, that's not the image that I've ever seen, and I want to make that clear. I'm not here.
We're a political party. We're one of 19 political parties, believe it or not, in the province of Ontario. We're the fifth largest party. We're the party that is the largest party that advocates smaller government. None of the other parties that are our size advocate smaller government. We started out, well, just to give you an example, we're one of the fastest growing parties in Ontario, because if you go back a few elections to, for example, the year 2003, there was an election. We had 5 candidates. There was another election in 2007. We had 25 candidates. There was another election in 2011. We had 51 candidates. There was another election in 2014. We had 73 candidates. The next election in 2018, we're going to have 122 candidates. We're going to put a candidate in every single riding in the province so that people have the ability to choose smaller government.
Yeah.
We're the largest party that advocates smaller government and a less intrusive government, and we have a plan that people should be made aware of as much as possible, and that's why I'm here talking to you.
Yeah, and like I said to you before we actually started doing the actual interview, I was using this as both a tool to get the message out there and to learn myself. Because I want to have an open mind, and I want to learn more, right?
Well, like I said, find us on Facebook. There you will see the play-by-play of the news of the day, our attitude on various issues that are happening right now in Ontario, and so we publish on Facebook every day.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook group which people can join and find out more about the party and help us out. We're running in 2 elections right now. There's one going on in Niagara, West Glanbrook, and in the Niagara Peninsula area. And there's another election going on in Ottawa area, Ottawa-Vanier. These 2 by-elections were called just recently. There's going to be a vote in both of those places on November the 17th. And we are active in both of those areas where we have candidates running. In both of those ridings, we have, if you go to our website, you can donate money to those 2 candidates. You can help them out if you happen to live in Niagara, West Glanbrook, or in the Ottawa Vanier area.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't, you can come in and help them out. Because we need to make people aware that we exist and that we have ideas that are very different from the government of the day.
Okay, that's impressive how much you're growing. I gotta say that.
Yeah. I made a joke the other day. We had an annual general meeting, and the joke was we're the fastest growing party in Ontario, and only we know that. Yeah. Well, the media aren't aware of us, and the media won't cover us, primarily because we haven't yet been able to put a candidate in every riding.
Well,
Once we do that, we've changed the ball game, and that's what we plan to do in this next election in a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have 2 more questions. Would you agree that with what's going on in the discourse in the United States and the introduction of Mr. Gary Johnston, would you agree that now, especially now, and with interviews like this, and if more people would give you the opportunity, would you agree that with everything that was going on with Trump, that was a big push to bring attention, or will be a big push to bring attention to the party? Because that's what brought me to it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is the second election that Gary Johnson has run in. The first election, which happened 4 years ago, he was pretty much the same, but he's getting a lot more attention now because of the quality of the 2 candidates that are the prime candidates in the United States. I mean, everybody knows that both Trump and Clinton have their massive shortcomings.
And there was another one brought up. There was another one brought up. There was another one brought up yesterday, but I don't know the full story.
Yeah. The idea of the emails, Clinton's emails, but that's an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that here the home, theoretically the self-pronouncing freest country in the world, the land of the free and the home of the brave, and they produce these 2 people who are amongst the worst candidates that I can imagine. And here you also have a fellow like Gary Johnson, who happens to be the Libertarian candidate, and he's a really nice guy. I mean, from the interviews I've seen of him, he seems to be a very nice guy. He's got a very good attitude about government. We share many of the ideas that he would advocate. He's actually got political experience. He's been the governor of I think it was New Mexico for 2 terms. He was a very popular governor. He was a Republican there, but he was in a Democratic state, and yet he was extremely popular because he reduced taxes, increased employment, did all sorts of things that benefited the state that he was governor of, and he's running against these other 2. And of course, the primary reason that the other 2 are getting are so popular and so high up in the polls is because there's tons of money being used by them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be thrilled if Gary Johnson was able to steal part of the popular vote. I've got no illusions that he's going to win or anything like that, but I'm very much hoping that he gets 5 to 10% of the popular vote, and that would really give us a boost, because I think that would just by virtue of the fact that people like you found out about us through Gary Johnson. Well, that's terrific, because we have a commonality. By the way, we're not affiliated in any way with any other Libertarian Party, including the Libertarian Party of Canada.
Yeah.
We happen to share some of the same membership, but we have different points of view on a number of issues, and we also we're a provincial party, and that makes us kind of different than the federal party. So we try to stick to provincial issues, and yes, this thing that's going on down in the States is helping us out a lot. Yes, absolutely.
And the last question I have for anybody that may be listening to this video once it's up is if somebody wanted to run for the party, how do they do that?
It's very simple. You can contact me. I'm on Facebook. You can contact the party page, which is on Facebook, and or you can join the group, which is on Facebook. That's the simplest thing to do. And of course, the biggest problem there is that you have to sort of be on Facebook.
Yeah.
But that's not the only way you can join. If you go to our website, libertarian.on.ca, you'll see that on the website there's places where you can join the party, on our menu, or you can become a candidate, or you can just contact us through an email, and we'd be happy to reply. And we'll take you through stepwise through the steps that would be required to become a candidate. We are actually right now in the process of collecting candidates for the 2018 election. We've made huge strides in the last few months, so that we're very close to the 122 candidates that are required, but there are a number of ridings that we still need people to volunteer. So yes, by all means, libertarian.on.ca, or find us on Facebook, and I will personally help you through and explain how you can become a candidate for us. Or you don't have to become a candidate. I mean, you could just donate a few dollars to the party, join the party, just $10 a year to join the party, not a big deal.
Yeah.
There's many ways that you can take part if you think our ideas are ideas that you want to help push in this province.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for today, and I hope I hope the interview was comfortable for you, and
Yeah.
And I hope one day we could do a follow up.
Okay. Well, maybe when maybe after the election.
Alrighty. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, bud.
Very much.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.